Hi everyone, and welcome to a material-centered episode where we're going to go through and understand how materials actually work, how to better understand the maths that goes into it. Because I see a lot of comments from people saying they're completely blown away and completely mystified by the material editor. So I'm going to try and explain it as best I can with the methods I know and how I taught myself basically how materials work. So let's go through and introduce you to my way of thinking when it comes to materials. So here I have a basic post-process material. Okay, so we've got a post-process input 0 going into emissive color. And the trick to understanding materials in my eyes was understanding that every pixel is just a number, okay, or a series of numbers, in fact. So it has a number for the R channel, green channel, blue channel, and alpha channel. And if it's a grayscale image going between white and black, then it will also be a value for that. And the value can actually go below 0 and can go above 1 as well. And that's when it gets a bit tricky with materials, because 0 is black, 1 is white. So you can't get any whiter than white, and you can't get any blacker than black. So it can be a bit tricky when you start getting results that you don't expect, because numbers have gone out of hand and you've lost track of what numbers actually are. You can debug them. There are methods to do that. But what's important is actually managing those numbers and basically clamping them down and making sure they are being managed the whole entire time. So let's demonstrate how maths and numbers actually comes into play for the material editor. So we just got a post-process input 0, that's fine. But let's do a color node. Okay, so we're going to do a 3 vector, which, by the way, the shortcut for that is hold down 3 and left click, and you make a 3 vector. And for this top one here, I'm going to set it to red. And here's a good example where you can see like how red, green, and blue are just numbers between 0 and 1. So every color is just a combination of these values. So I'm going to set my R channel to 1, and we get red out of it. And if I were to plug that into emissive color, we get red. So if I wanted to make this one here green, so we've got 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. And if you think about it, you're just adding numbers together, multiplying numbers. They're just numbers. So when I do a multiplier here, let me know what you think the color will be. Well, the color will be black. Why is it black? Well, if you think about numbers and multiply them together, so x multiplied by x, so 1 multiplied by 0 is 0, 0 multiplied by 1 is 0, and 0 multiplied by 0 is 0. And 0, as we've mentioned before, is black. If I were to add these numbers together, you get a different result. And that's because you're now going to get 1, 1, 0. So you'll get this yellow color. Okay. And that is the same as me making a thing here like this. Okay. No difference between this and this. And it's just adding these numbers together. 1 and 0, 0 and 1, 0, 0. Likewise, we can do subtraction as well. So if I do subtraction like this, we're just going to get red. Why are we just going to get red? Well, that's because 1 in the x here, take away nothing, is 1. 0 take away 1 is -1. And 0 and 0 are 0. So we're going to get red because there's only 1 in the red channel. Now, interestingly enough, remember what I mentioned about numbers going out of range? So we've now got a y that's in the negative values. And I can prove that even more so. If I were to go into here and add a value onto this. So this is red, remember? So red. If I was going to add green to this, you would expect it to be yellow. But it's not. Why is it not? Well, because this value had the y value into -1. Because of the subtraction, 0 take away 1. Then we're adding here 1 back to it, which makes it up to 0. So it's still 1, 0, 0. So we get red again. And this is what we mean by keeping those numbers under check. And so if I were to take this subtraction here and saturate it, which clamps the value down, we now get back to yellow, because saturation is going to bring that -1 up to 0. And we can now set it up to be yellow. Now let's talk about divide. We're going to take this value, divide by this value. This is going to give you some errors. Why are you going to get some errors? Well, as you famously know from school, you can't divide by 0. So when you get 1 divided by 0, you get an error. Yeah. So there's some issues when it comes to division. You have to be very careful of what you do there. You're just going to get just complete errors coming up. Okay, so be aware of what divide is actually doing here. Now, if I were to put in something different here, so let's say I'll put in 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. Okay, and we've got 1, 0, and 0 divided by 0.2, 0.2, 0.2. Okay, so here we've got 1 divided by 0.2 is 5, so x is going to equal to 5. 0 divided by 0.2 is going to be 0. 0 divided by 0.2 is 0. So this is actually coming out of here is actually the equivalent of me saying that 5 in the x there. And again, we can prove it because the values have gone out of range here. If I were to subtract from this and put in, actually, we'll do a add to it and add in 1 in the y there. No, sorry, not y, subtract. We want subtract. There we go. Oh, no. Yeah. If we were subtracting it from there, you would expect that if it's red and you take away red, you're going to be left with black. Well, you're not, because this was actually 5 in here. So that's now coming out as 4 as a value here. And we can actually see this working actually as well. So there's a debug you can do where you can debug the float. So you can debug the float values like that. And you put in those values there. And we'll put in the colors there. And you can see here the color coming out is 400. Okay, so you can see these numbers working in tandem. So if I put this up there, there's now 5. And so that's a good way to think about it. It's just numbers. And you'd fix that problem that we saw by saturating it or clamping it. So after division, we saturate, put this into subtract, and now we're left with 0, 0, 0 because we're subtracting 1 from 1. If I put that in there, we're now going to get saturated down to 1, 0, 0, which is red. So there you go. That is a very brief understanding of how colors and materials and textures work in the material editor. And that's the way I think about it. It helps me understand what the hell I'm looking at. And as I mentioned, and as you saw, you need to keep those numbers in check and keep them in mind basically what values they are. If you're really struggling, you can use that debug node there to help you debug what values actually are getting out of it. So if you like this video and want to see more material stuff, leave a comment below about what you'd like to see. And if you want to see more of that stuff right now, head over to patreon.com/RyanLady, where you can find all my videos early before anyone else. Thank you so much for everyone for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye, everyone.